One of the things that I would say about her as a person is that since she took over, well, she's been the first person responsible for running the retreat centre for 15 years? 19 years. Good God. That long. Wow. Seems much longer. I'm sure it does for the residents. When she first took on that role, I guess it's fair to say you didn't have much management leadership experience. And I have seen her grow tremendously to the stage where she's somebody that I often have in the back of my mind when I'm coaching and working with executive leaders in big corporations, because she's kind of learnt the tough way over the last 19 years. And I think the team and the family over at the retreat centre love her and respect her all the more for it. So you tell I'm a bit of a fan. So without any more waffle from me.
It's quite true what Jeff says, that I've learned the job on the job. And I'm not sure if I would say that I've learned it as well. Because it's one of those things that you learn as you learn about yourself, isn't it? Especially in terms of guiding people. And I wouldn't even say that I would accept the role that I'm guiding people or leading people. The only thing I can do is really guide my own self and lead my own self. And then in the process, share the experience with others, taking into consideration the sensitivities that people have. And those of you who know the Brahma Kumaris will know that Brahma Kumaris is an organization run by volunteers. And although it's quite fashionable, I hear, in today's world, and also quite prestigious in today's world to say that our organization is run by volunteers, but I have a little hesitation with that word. And the reason why, and in the context of the situation of the Brahma Kumaris particularly, the reason why I have a bit of hesitation is that we really very much consider ourselves to be part of a family, an international family, a group of people, and that group can sometimes be 10 or 20, or at our headquarters in Mount Abu, it's about 2,000 people, 2,000 volunteers, inverted commas, come together to offer their time and their talent and their service. We come together because we're on a journey. We come together because we realize that as part of our own spiritual growth, we also have to learn how to make a contribution to the spiritual growth of others. And so, to think that you're guiding or leading seems a bit presumptuous for me. And in any case, the moment I think that I have to do something, I stop doing it. In a sense that I'm not really doing it. I think I'm doing it. Or I have to make sure that I do it. If I have to make sure that I'm doing it, then I'm actually not doing it. I'm actually pretending. Or there isn't authenticity or naturalness in that process. And working with a group of people in a very, very close proximity, we're a group of 30 people living and working together 24/7. We don't have a 9 to 5. We don't have a Monday to Friday. And that's why I have a resistance to this word volunteers, because we really are aware that we're a family. Amongst ourselves, we're a family, but the people that we say we're serving, they're also part of our family. Imagine, and I'm telling you this because just think about for your own self. If you were to make, or when you are to make that shift into that consciousness that you are not a single unit, or you're not part of a unit of 4 or 5, you're not part of a unit of 10 or 20, but you're part of a unit of everyone that comes along your way. However big or small that group of people might be. I was hearing very beautiful things about presence from Andrea as she was presenting her workshop. And this whole idea of the awareness of the self, it's quite powerful actually. And for this little stretch that I have with you, I've been given the topic to speak about secrets of transformation. So just before we begin, I'd just like to share a couple of minutes of silence with everyone. You've had a very busy day and seems like a very powerful day. Let's just become present for a moment or two and consider this process of transformation. What exactly happens in this transformation? Is there really transformation? Are you changing? Are you transforming? Or are you evolving? Thank you. When I think about transformation, a very powerful metaphor comes to mind. And it's a metaphor that we use a lot here. Because on this spiritual journey, or on any spiritual journey, very much the awareness that we're on a journey of creating a life that is a life of peace, a life of happiness, but also a life of service at the same time. And service, for me, it's not something that I do when I decide that I'm doing service now. Again, because if you do that, then it means there are times when you're not doing service. But is that really possible? And so this threading together, this journey of life and this journey of the process of transformation, but a process in which life never really stops giving. In fact, we're actually always sharing and giving with others. And it's just that sometimes we probably share the things that shouldn't really be shared, because that's what's inside of us. And so this, when I think about the example of transformation, how is that, what is actually going on when transformation happens? Change is happening all the time. Change never stops happening. Everything is always changing. Nothing ever stops changing. And we don't understand that when we want something to be the way we want it to be. But imagine if you understand that journey of life is about change. Matter is always changes. Climate is always changing. People are always changing. Material things are always changing. Nothing ever remains the same. But that change happens in a sense that often is not perhaps a comfortable change, a positive change, or a good change, inverted commas, but then that is life. But when we think about transformation, transformation is something that I can make a conscious choice for. I want to transform this. I want to transform myself. I want to transform situations. And you're thinking about transforming it from something to something else. And so what is this process that actually goes on? You know, if you have something made of gold, let's say if you had a bangle, and you decide that you don't like this bangle and you would prefer to have 3 rings instead. Would you be able to chop up this bangle and just join pieces of the bangle together? Logically seems quite simple. If it was something fancy that you were making out of this bangle, you wouldn't be able to do it, but quite straightforward, right? Couldn't you just cut this bangle up into 3 pieces and join them together and make a ring? Could you do that? You couldn't really do it. What you would have to do is that you would have to go take that gold back into its original form. You would take it back into this lump that it was before. And once you've taken it back into that form again, you can make it soft and then give it a different shape and form that you want. And in order to take it back into that original form, the piece of gold that it was before, they say that gold really becomes soft when you put it into a fire. A fire that has to be so hot that when you put this bangle into the fire, it'll melt and it'll just become a piece of gold. So much so that actually the alloy, whatever's not gold that's mixed into this gold, will separate itself from the gold. And then the gold becomes so soft that you can give it whatever shape and form that you want. And imagine the same process happening for us in the journey of transformation. There is an aspect of myself that I want to change. I don't know, what could it be? Let's say I'm an angry person. I'm a very bitter person. And I want to change. I want to transform myself and make myself very sweet. How will I do it? Will I just say, that's it, I'm going to keep eating sugar and I will become sweet? How am I going to make this shift from being very bitter and angry inside into a person that is very sweet and soft and gentle, perhaps? And the metaphor, the idea that really came to my mind, and I have to say, having been on this journey for 30 years, when Jeff says he's seen a change in me, it's nice to have that certificate, but I can think of a lot of things that I still need to change within myself. And so this process of transformation, it's also one of those things, you think, that's it, I've cracked it, I've got it, and I'm there. And then guess what happens? Something just comes from around the corner and you think, whoa, I didn't really realize that was there too. Is that your experience? It's like you've cracked something and something else is waiting. Because, as human beings, as this human spiritual energy that I am, there's such a vast amount of experience, in a sense, that's stored within the self that so often, or consciously, I'm aware of this much of it. Unconsciously, there is so much. You know how they say about the iceberg, that what's underneath is much deeper than what's on the surface. And it feels a little bit like that there's so much deeply buried inside the soul, and you don't even realize the extent to which it's in there. And so a practice that has helped me a great deal in my own personal transformation is really this awareness that actually what I am today the character, the personality that I have become, inverted commas, really is as a product of a vast amount of experiences of the past. And you know, we have a saying in India that actually you come alone and you go alone. You bring nothing with you. The only thing you bring with you is a whole series of experiences that you carry with you. You know, so often we experience something and we may not remember specific situations and circumstances, but just the feeling that's left inside you is what you remember consciously. But there's a lot that's buried deep inside the self. And so really just this awareness that actually what I am today really is a product of all that has happened to me over a long period of time. And actually separating myself from that in a sense that recognizing that this being, this intention that wants to be something other than what I appear to be today. I'm angry, I am bitter, and then I'm unhappy. But at the core of this being that wants to be something else is what I truly am. In actual fact, why I want to be this and experience myself as this is because that is who I really am. That is what I really am. Otherwise, why would I have such a notion that I want to be peaceful and this sweet and loving person? Because at the deep down at the core of my being, I know that I am this. And so this separation between what I have become and what I really am. What I really am is not this angry and bitter person. But what I really am is this peaceful, loving, and gentle person that I truly want to be. And so really this process of transformation, in actual fact, is a return journey. Journey to what I truly am. But I simply have forgotten that I am that. Can you just see, instead of thinking I have to be something, and then it feels so alien because the experience that I have at this moment in time is so real that it feels like this is me. But in actual fact, then it feels like a hard job to be what I want to be. But if you become aware that I am truly that, I just digressed. I digressed because of situations and circumstances that life presented in front of me. But now I'm going back to that real, true self. And when I do that, then I'm returning to this original form that I took that piece of gold back to. And in that place, and the practice really for that is a practice of deep silence. And when I talk about silence, I don't mean silence in which you might say you're not going to say anything. But I would even say you're not even going to have compulsive or consistent thoughts about yourself. In fact, silence means to have one thought and stay in the experience of that thought, whereby your mind no longer feels the need to create thoughts. To take yourself into that place where your senses are not being stimulated from things outside of yourself. Because even to use your senses to take yourself inside yourself can only be or will only be a very limited experience. I can use it for a short period of time, but then I have to stop that too. And I mean, sometimes at the retreat center when we have silence, people say, well, can I read my book? in a period of silence? What do you think? Do you think you should be reading a book when you're observing silence? No. Should you be listening to music when you're attempting to be silent? No. Because all of these things are still stimulating you inside, and they are still outside. But you can use them initially, but then finally to come to a place where you no longer need that anymore, and you are in that full awareness of your own true, original, and beautiful, silent self. It's like, wiping the slate of your soul clean. Do you think it's possible to do that even for a short period of time? And in fact, only for a short period of time. Because in that place where you have wiped the slate of your soul clean, you can have the experience of the possibility of writing on that slate whatever you choose. Whatever you choose. Like Andrea was explaining, if you think something is not possible, if you don't even conceive the possibility of impossibilities, that something is impossible, then it's not a question of it being impossible. And so in that place of absolute silence and peace inside, and I'm not exploring, I'm not going into this where we're saying, well, what about this and what about that? Whatever may be outside of yourself, whoever may be outside of yourself. It's really, we're not taking that into consideration. Having said that, still, but you are taking into consideration what you are inside your own self. Imagine the place of power that you take yourself to. You are whatever it is that you want to be and you could be. That's the only possibility. And in that place, in a sense, that slate that was clean has been cleaned, is prepared to write whatever you want on it. But the important thing is to create this space for yourself every single day without a miss. Every single day, at least twice a day. And if possible, as many times in the day as possible. But at least twice a day. So that this place, and then the work actually begins. The real work then is when you have created that space and tasted the nectar of that space. How can you hold it in your heart? How can you hold it in your eyes? How can you reflect it and articulate it in words, in your interaction with others? And through that, you are giving yourself a new form and a new identity. We give ourselves the identity of what we can do and how well we can do it and who we can do it with and how long we can do it for. Is that really my identity? Or is my identity deeply inside the recognition of my own truth? My own peace, my own power. And the more I do this for myself and become aware of the space inside myself of this, the more I claim back my power. And by doing so, the more I'm able to return to that original space that I, as a spiritual being, am. Love, peace, truth, and beauty. And it is this space, from this space, you can give life, whatever form and shape you want it to have. And it is from this place that anyone that comes into this space receives something. Actually, my job is not to think I'm giving this and I'm going to give this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do the other. The moment I do that, it's not real and it's not natural. But can I create this space for myself, knowing that ultimately this space will have effect on anyone that comes into that space? When I'm able to create that, then myself, I, and my life naturally becomes that which is able to share with others. Every word becomes like a word that is a jewel that people will be ready to take. Precious jewels in their intellect. And whatever time then I share with others, it's a time that uplifts others. And so this process of and then I make it, half an hour? It's gone by, almost nearly there. To articulate this in such a short space of time, not so easy, because it's a lifelong journey too. It's a lifelong journey. But as we keep having the taste of this as many times as possible, the more we're able to expand this space for longer period. And eventually, ultimately arrive at that time in that place where we're able to do it at all times. And for me, and just within 2 minutes, a very important aspect, I think, to this also is to allow myself to be exposed to something that is never changing. Everything in this world is always changing. Something that is never changing, something that never discriminates, something that never is judgmental, something that is always safe. And that is the spiritual space. That is a space, in a sense, that is beyond this physical, limited world of matter. And in that space also, the perception and the possibility of a divine, supreme energy that is always available to me at any time. Soft, loving, gentle, unconditional at all times. It's like that space, that energy is a reference point for me. And as I make that the reference point for myself, I'm able to create that sense of stability, consistency, and a place of power inside my own self. When I live in a world that is constantly changing, you can never predict anything. Forget the situations, but even people you think you know, you don't know what they're going to come back at you with at any time. In situations and circumstances like this, the only place, the only way to maintain that stability and consistency is when I too am able to spend time in that space that is constant, stable, safe, compassionate, and loving. Then the process of transformation becomes a very natural process of transformation. But it requires patience. It requires consistency. We are going to have at the end, I think, an opportunity to share a few moments of meditation together. So I've taken up my half an hour just in sharing. But maybe we can just have a minute or two of just reflecting some of the things, perhaps even conceiving the possibility of creating that safe space, that consistent space, that deep place of peace and beauty and truth inside ourselves.